I'm an alcoholic. It's a pleasure to be able to introduce Mark tonight. I've known Mark, 4, 5, 6 years now. He's been coming to the morning meeting. I'll tell you, it's a real pleasure to see him in the mornings there. When Mark's one of those kind of guys that when he shares, people's ears perk up and they listen to him because he speaks the truth and speaks from his heart. So, Mark, come on up and tell your story.
Don't you people have homes? I said, Jay, stretch it out. My name's Mark, I'm alcohol.
Hey, Mark.
My sobriety date is June 5, 2016. My birthday is June 5 also. That's it. We'll get to that. I didn't really want to do this. I was pretty nervous, actually. I could stand in front of a room with like 100 physicians and I could talk for an hour easy on information that's probably way out of my league to know. But saying anything in front of people that I love, letting them know anything about me, this is the hardest thing I've ever done. As a matter of fact, I was looking at on the board the other day, well, about a month ago, sitting over there, I was looking at the board, and I'm going through the new chair people for the period. And I got to the point where I said Lisa F for birthday chair, and I said, "Oh no, Lisa F," and I looked, and she was looking right at me. She called me over, and I shuffled over, head down. And she asked me, and I said, "Hey, do you mind if I think about it?" And then she said, "Sure, but what do we do when people ask us to do something?" So I said, "Yes." So I guess I'll start from the beginning. To prepare, I thought about what I was going to say, but every time I thought about it, it was something different. And then I listened to a bunch of different speaker meetings or speakers from this group, and it really gave me an opportunity to just know some of you guys so much better, so much more, and really put me at ease. I guess some backstory. I like to say I grew up feral in the woods, but it's only mostly true. I had a house and everything, and I actually thought we were pretty well off. Town I lived in, graduated about 100 and change, and but we had at my house we had food all the time, we had lights all the time, and it was always warmish, even in the dead of winter. So, but it was pretty poor and it was pretty rural, and my mom's parents both had their parents die when they were super young in the early 1900s, and so they went through all of that, World War I and Depression and Spanish flu and World War II, and so by the time they had my mom, they were just in tremendous fear all the time. And same on my dad's side. My dad's dad was abandoned by his mom and raised in a very, very small house with no lights, no electricity, he came from fear and lack, and that's even though we always had stuff, it was always like a sense that you were gonna run out most likely, which is not really comforting when you're 5 or 6 years old. So it was always like there just was never enough. It was just a feeling of lack. But other than that, like, it was a pretty normal childhood. My dad went to work every day, 40 years at AT&T. My mom was a nurse. We lived up, like I said, in the woods. There was a lot of farms around us, and they would always hunt and hang their deer up and everything, and that was always a thing. And so my dad and I, when I was 9, we went down to this barn, and we were standing around. And by this point, I'm already uncomfortable in my skin because of there's just like this underlying anxiety in my house 24/7 about really nothing. Looking back now, there didn't need to be that, but there was no abuse, there wasn't a lot of yelling, but it was just like this. You could sense it, and so I'm down there, and I'm around these guys, and they're older, they're farmers and they're hunters, and about 5 or 6 of them, And one of them, which a lot of them do up there, make their own alcohol. One of them had just made some apple cider, and they were passing it around, and it got to me, and I drank it. And the problem with apple cider is that it tastes good, and I liked it. And if it had been whiskey, I might have waited a while, but I liked it, so I drank it, and then I kept drinking it, and it kept going around, by the end, I was just holding it, and if they wanted some, they had to ask me to share with them. And I'll just never forget the sense of ease and belonging. It was like the first time in my life I felt that, and I actually developed my stance. Like if I'm doing it right now. This is my belly up to the bar, and this is probably the most comfortable feeling I've ever had. And the first time I did it, I had my foot up on a log, and I was leaning forward, and I was one of the guys. And we were so isolated. My dad could isolate. He's not alcoholic. Never drank, but he was a good isolator. And so I didn't have a lot of interaction. And when I started to have interaction with other kids, especially after I started drinking at 9 years old, I never developed any sort of connection with anyone. So I started drinking at 9, and by 10, I'm going in the cabinet and I'm taking out the small airplane bottles and I'm drinking those. At 10, my mom leaves, so now I'm like alone. My dad works, hour in and hour back, and I'm by myself. My sister's there, but I never see her. And so I'm like 10 years old doing my own life. Like I'm a grown up, and I'm making tons of decisions, and none of them are good. I got kicked out got suspended from school for bringing alcohol to school when I was 10. Didn't drink it, but I needed it. I needed to have that with me. Getting in a lot of trouble, 12, 13, 14. Now I'm getting arrested. Now I'm getting arrested for assault. Now I'm getting arrested for burglary. 17, 18, I get arrested right before graduation. 18, somehow, all throughout this, I managed to have okay grades, and a pretty decent high school wrestling career that got me a lot of doors opened. Without that, I would have quit school way before then. I never had a goal. My goal was to one day get on a motorcycle and head that way, or whichever way that was. So, I'm in trouble all the time, but I got people that are kind to me. By the time I'm 15, 16, I'm no longer at my house. I'm just staying at Coach's house. I'm staying at other people's homes all the time. And realistically, I got to stay at someone else's house. It's someone who doesn't have a parent there, so that I can drink their alcohol. And that's where I'm at. So by that time, I'm stealing alcohol. We're breaking into bars, and we're stealing stuff at the end of the night. We're not doing great things, and get arrested right before. And so I have one coach who I didn't apply. No, but at this point, no one's telling. I don't know anything. My mom doesn't know anything. She lives over there. My dad's doing the best he can, and nobody really knows. No, it's just fine. I didn't even think twice about it. It just seemed normal. From the town that I was in, it just seemed like that's how most people lived. Like most people grinded out a living, and got arrested a lot and drank hard. And so realistically, that obsession goes on for a long time. And I didn't really understand why, and I was never able to make a connection, really with anyone. I had a lot of friends, but I didn't have anybody really close that I shared anything with, and I certainly didn't talk about anything with anyone at this point. There was no real outlet for me other than I could put some alcohol in my body and I can get some relief. And so I can't really make a living at this point. A coach finally talks me into going to school. I go to school, and then I don't know what I'm going to do. That's a 2-year school. I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm drinking through the whole thing. I'm about to get thrown out like at any minute, all the time. But you know, at 8 o'clock in the morning, if it's St. Patrick's Day, it seems natural to me to get up and immediately start drinking. I'm not even Irish. But that was a day. Like every day was a party. Every day was a party. I would do anything. I would take any drug. I would put anything in my body. Didn't make a difference, and I didn't really have any plans outside of that, to be honest with you. So I go. It's the end of my 2 years. I get an associate's degree. I don't know what I'm going to do. And same coach saves my life again. Puts me in a school where I meet the wife of my youth. And I can tell you right now, Alcoholics Anonymous has done so much for me. I love AA. I didn't want to come here for myself. I didn't care if I lived or died when I came here. But if I had an opportunity to keep the wife of my youth and my son, and to see and to not have my kid see me devolve into like insanity, then it seemed like AA was going to be it could work for me. I had known a couple of people who were in AA, and they didn't seem overly happy or joyous or free or any of the BS that we talk about in there. They actually miserable, to be honest with you. Could be a function of New York also. And but I knew that they didn't drink, and so I filed that in the back of my mind. I knew those guys, and one had 30 years, and one had about 5 or 6 years, and the second one we drank together, we drank hard, and we drank all the time, and we would go to his house. The cool thing was, I had a job at that time. My story of my earning money is pitiful. But I was like 9 emotionally in my head. You know, it's hard. It's like the movie Big. I looked grown up, but I didn't know a thing. I didn't know one thing. I had no idea how to do anything. You know, I look back now, and it's a miracle I survived. And it's clear that my wife dragged me around for years. She's the only reason that we had any money in the bank at all. And so, oh shoot, where was I? All right, so I'm not really doing a good job making a living, and I finally get this good job, and these guys all drink like me, and this is great. We go on all these, meetings, we do all this stuff, and everyone's drinking like me. And I'm there for 13, 14 years, and all of a sudden, no one's drinking like me anymore. And I feel like the gig is up here, for me. At this particular, I'm going to get found out. The way I drink is just insane, and I'm starting to do things that are just wrong. I go work with somebody on a Tuesday night. I'd wake up Wednesday morning in my suit, like on the bathroom floor, and there's 5 minutes, and they're here, and I just got to get up, put some water on my face, and go down. I'm just doing the bare minimum, barely surviving. I'm no longer taking them out and their families out for dinner. I'm using 100% of the budget for myself, and I'm eating like a pack of crackers, and the rest is for booze. And it's every night. It's every time I go out. When I'm home, I wake up every morning. I can't do this. I cannot have another drink. Be in the garage all night, smoking cigarettes, be by myself, my kid's inside, my wife's inside. But I gotta drink. Oh, so let me go back. So I'm 10 years old, I'm smoking cigarettes, and I'm drinking, and I'm gonna keep going anyway. We're still doing good on time? Yeah? All right. So anyway, I'm drinking insanely as an adult, I'm starting to think that the best thing for me to be would be, you know, if I could just get in a car accident or something, and that would be great. So I don't know what to do. I leave this job so I don't get found out, and I take a job with my competition. So I burn every bridge at my company. I get there, I go to this company. The first thing they do, they have a national sales meeting. I am so tight instantly. Something in the book about getting tight at the wrong time. Well, I get wrecked and I just blow up their sales meeting on a pretty good size scale. And you know, it wasn't long before that when they asked me to leave, so I don't have it. Now I have no prospects. Everybody that calls on a gastroenterologist knows my story, knows something happened. So I'm basically out of an entire career now. And so I'm like, all right, I'll work for myself, which I now know is a euphemism for I have no job. I learned that in here. Yeah. Yeah, it wasn't good. It wasn't great, and it was like a few years, and I'm still drinking. And realistically, I got to the point where I thought I was going insane for real, and I couldn't just tell myself every morning when I would get up, oh, Jesus, just one day, let me feel what it feels like for one day, because now by this time I'm realistically drinking every single day by the time I'm 16, 17 years old. Maybe there's a few days where like I just physically can't find booze because I'm a kid. But other than that, once we were 17, 18, we would go into Oswego, and they had all these bars, and no one cared how old you were, and we'd go out there 16, 17, 18 years old, easy, and spend all night out there, and no one knew where, no one had a parent. The people that I hung out with didn't have parents, apparently. But it seemed like a lot of people, like I said, were like that in my town. Very weird, but so we would always find some place to drink. But now I'm in my 30s, and life's getting worse. I'm late 30s, and life's getting worse for me. Since she's getting worse, but none of this time can I even imagine, like, it's the alcohol that has just taken away all my confidence, taken away any sort of self-respect that I had. It's taken away any good thing that I had, save my wife and my kid, my son. Realistically, I got nothing. I'm about to lose my house. I really don't want to have that conversation with Ben. Why we're losing our house? Because we're out of money. He thinks I work. He thinks I work for myself. Now I can tell him. It means that I don't have a job. I think he knew that anyway. But what had happened was I knew I needed to do something. So I guess it was about 6 months before I actually got sober. I went to a club far away as possible. I said, I gotta go. I gotta do something. And before this, when I was like 19, I told somebody I was alcoholic, and they said, okay, let's go to a meeting, and I never talked to that person again. I think about all the time I wasted, but it's what happened, and that's okay. And there were a few things like that over the years. I remember I went and checked in, and we were living on Long Island, and I went and I looked in this place, and not one person looked like me. These were, I picked a totally black neighborhood, and I said, yeah, these aren't my guys. And no, seriously, I walked in, and I was young still, and I looked and I listened to them, and I said, okay, that isn't me. I heard everything I heard all the differences, and I never went back. So I had a few times when I could have come in, realistically, and stopped the bleeding. But now it's bad, and I know I got to do something to try to save my marriage and get a job. And so I I look up where there's some, and I find one that's not too far because I'm lazy, but far enough away where I don't think anyone from my neighborhood might see me. So I go over to West Spring, and it was when I was down on 1960 in Kirkendall still. And Tony was there, and his brother, and there's a bunch of guys there. And I sat down, and I got a book, and I got a Desire chip. And I remember the first 24 hours when I didn't have a drink. I could not believe the power that I felt. Like, for the first time in a long time, I felt like things are going to be okay. And after 2, 3 weeks, 4 weeks of that, I said, I'm doing great. I don't need this anymore. I'm not drinking. And oh, you heard that story? So I'm doing fine. And so I stopped going. And inexplicably, I would still go to the farm over here, this bar with my friend. We'd watch the games or whatever. And I went there a few times with him, and I just drank water and club soda. And then I don't know what happened. One day I just said, I'll take one. It was back on. It was on instantly, and it was on way worse for me because I was getting drunk so fast now, and I wasn't just drinking a couple of beers. I wasn't just putting a buzz on. I was drinking bourbon, and I was drinking it like deliberately. And I always drank deliberately. I always got to the point where I would either black out or we didn't have anything left to drink. And that's how I drank my whole life. And luckily, I had a job at one point where I couldn't drive my car I couldn't get DWI, I'd lose my job because they insured the car. So for years, my wife drove everywhere. And she liked to drive, so it was fine. But I mean, there were times when she would just pour me out of the car and just leave me just on the ground. And she had every right to. And there was so many times like that. So I'm right back in that spot where I was. But now I've got, what do they say, a head full of AA and a belly full of alcohol. Don't really mix that well. And that's what was happening to me. I knew that I didn't really pay attention when I was going to that club the first time. I didn't really get into the book. I didn't have a sponsor. I didn't work the steps, but I heard something enough because I was there enough times that I knew that, look, these guys don't drink and they're fine, and they seem to lead pretty nice lives. And now I knew, like, I couldn't keep going, but I was still going. There wasn't anything really stopping me. And my wife used to wake me up a lot of times, and I'd always I'd have this like goofy smile on my face, and I'd love to see her. And okay, I'd shuffle off to bed like an old patient with dementia or whatever. Sometimes she'd just leave me there, but I always had that smile when she'd wake me. And remember, she'd waking, she's shaking me, she'd waking me, and she didn't have that smile on her face right now. And I'm smiling, and she's not smiling. And she's animated, and her hands are moving, and she's pointing, and I'm trying to figure out what's going on. And she gets me up, and she takes me into the bathroom, and she points at the mirror, and my whole face is like just shattered. My tooth is coming out of my mouth. Apparently, I stood up and went down, and I had never fallen like that before. Didn't stop me from drinking. I kept drinking for another few weeks after that. But it scared me bad. And what really scared me the most was, I know I'm going to do that again. I'm definitely going to start falling now. Like, I just could tell. Like, this is now the next step. When I was in the 1990s, a movie called Leaving Las Vegas came out, and I remember saying to myself, that sounds good. That is like the perfect way I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go to Las Vegas and I'm gonna drink myself to death. Or this is my story. I could just tell. And now I'm looking in the mirror and it's my story. And I was thinking, geez, my parents got divorced. I didn't have a great life. I had it way better than a lot of people. I'd say like 100% of the people in my area were on like food assistance and stuff like that, except for us. And I was like, all right, we're like so much better than the rest of you. I get one pair of shoes a year, but I had a chance, I knew, to change the arc of Ben's life different than what mine was. And, I'd for years been pondering how to do that, like reading all these self-help books, and every once in a while I'd try to talk to a professional or whatever and think I'd had it. And now here I am looking at this caved in face, and I'm like, remember, honey, I used to look like Brad Pitt? I'm gonna be at the top of the stairs, and this is gonna happen to me, and my wife's not gonna be here, and my son's gonna wake up, and I'm gonna freaking be at the bottom of the stairs, a wreck. If I'm alive, I could have a broken neck or whatever, and that's when I said I gotta stop drinking. If I stop drinking, I almost felt like I could stop the bleeding. I'll get whatever job I can. I don't even care anymore. Just something to participate. And Dave is here. And if I could just sit by myself and just be alone and stop doing damage, that would be cool. That'd be enough. So, but even then, I kept drinking a little bit more. Kept going for a couple more weeks. And I told you my sobriety date is the day before so my sobriety date is my birthday. So on the 4th of June, 2016, all these people that we loved from when I was a coach, coaching football, which I got kicked out of, by the way. Well, almost did, but I almost drank my way out of that, and I ruined a lot of good relationships there. And I'm back coaching them now, and that is the power of AA. That has nothing to do with me. It's a great second opportunity that I've had to be with these boys, and it's the best time in my life. So I'm just want to stop and say how grateful I am for that to AA. So we're out to dinner with a bunch of people that we know from the team, and it's my birthday, and I'm on my third Heineken, and I'm not drinking as heavy as I normally do because my tooth is loose. And I can't really eat anything for the same reason. It's like obviously summer, and you might know it's really hot here, and I'm like, I'll have the broth for my birthday broth. But I can still drink alcohol, and so I'm on my third beer, and something happens. Like 3 beers, like that's an insult to me. 3 beers, and but we're talking whatever. I don't really pay attention, and I don't want to start drinking the bourbon yet because I don't want my wife to have to carry me home. And so I see that the check is here, and I didn't get a chance to order another beer. I'm good. I'm a guy that is usually going to order 2 at a time because you can't come fast enough for me when I'm drinking. So I would always order 2 or 3 beers at a time and a shot, and by the time I got back to the table, I might be okay. So 3 beers is like all of a sudden I feel this sense inside of me like I'm gonna blow up right now. I need another drink right now. This is unacceptable that we are getting up and we are leaving right now. And I was so disturbed by that feeling because for a moment of clarity in my descent into madness, I could see that was just how could I feel like that? I just sat around with my best friends, the people that I absolutely love, and the only thing I can think about is I don't have enough beer right now. And then okay, I was like, you guys want to go out? And everyone's like, no, they're normal. They don't want to keep going. So I probably made the ride home miserable till I got home and I could have a drink, and that's when I said I'm going to come in here. And so I finally came back the next day. I went back to West Spring and I just threw in a towel. I said I capitulate. I don't care what happens. Doesn't make any difference to me. If these guys can just do their business and go about their lives and not drink, I'm going to do that. And I didn't know anything about God. I grew up in church. I love God. I pray all the time, but I didn't know how to pray until I came here. I'll talk about that a little bit in a minute. But I knew one thing. The people in these rooms have long-term sobriety. I don't know how. But if I just come in, if they can do it, I can probably do it. And if not, then I'll come every hour if I have to. I'm not working, so I'll just keep coming. So, I'm gonna do this. There's no question about it at this point. And that is my sobriety date, and I have not had a drink since, and I'm so grateful to God for that, and you people really. And I'm at this club, but I'm still not hearing a thing. I'm at a point now where I'm like a smoldering ember, 24 hours a day, and it's not because of the alcohol; it's because of what I've done to my life. By the time I'm 40, I've given up on everything that I thought I would do by the time I was 20. I just given up on being successful. I'd given up on providing a certain level of security and lifestyle for my family. I was just going to be whatever I could do would be fine, and like I said, just stop doing damage. And so I'm not listening. And I have a sponsor. We go through the steps. I don't really pay attention. We get to like 4 or 5, and I still see him, but I'm not making time for him or whatever. I'm not a guy that can talk in front of him. I got nothing to say to the guy. Like, I don't even know how to talk. I don't know how to tell him anything. I'm not reading a book, so I'm not getting. And so my only relief is that I'm starting to feel physically better, and the cobwebs are maybe starting to move out. But I'm really still volatile. Like I have developed at this point an addiction to rage that didn't make me, physically or abusive, or I wasn't like that. But man, I could smolder inside, and I could let you know that I'm not happy, and man, I could hit the weights, and I could hit the bag, and I could shake things up in the house sometimes, and I could. Yeah, I could. If you ever see like the Wild Kingdom or something, and they show these giant, beautiful silverback gorillas, and they just come down out of the mountain, and they're just grabbing trees, and they're just throwing trees in the air, and they're smashing everything. It's called demonstrating, and an ape will do that to show you like he's mad, he's in charge, and I would do that. I've turned stuff upside down. Geez, just like I was not always human. So I'm in this group, and I'm volatile. And somebody said to me the other day, Mark, I can't imagine like how you could possibly have been an angry person. You seem like such a nice guy and everything. And so I would just turn that question around to you. Have you ever gotten in a fist fight in an AA meeting and asked never to go back to that club? Because I did. In my sobriety, in my emotional sobriety, you gotta realize I'm 9 years old right now. I'm trying to deal in an adult world, and I don't have my best friend. I was raw, super raw. So I get in that fight, and I got that going for me. And we talk about like the grace of God in here a lot, and how just being at the right place at the right time. And my friend Joseph was there, and I love Joseph. And he said, come with me, tomorrow. Well, first of all, he said, come with me. He goes, that was fucking crazy. He's like, dude, you can't do that. They don't like that. So he's like, come with me to this other club. And it was here. And he sat in the back with me. I didn't talk to, I was so humiliated, of course. And I didn't want to talk to anyone. I couldn't look at anyone. I just looked straight down. That's it. I didn't share. I didn't listen. I read the book. I talked to Joseph a little bit. And then there's that sign that said keep coming back, and I said, you know what, I'm not getting kicked out of here. I'm just going to stay here. I'm going to keep coming back. These guys actually talk a little bit differently than what I've heard at some of these other clubs that I've been to. That 6:30 meeting is definitely different than any place I've ever been to in my life. And so I wanted to be here, so I stayed here, and I participated a little bit. In the beginning, the best I could do was put the chairs back. I could straighten them back up on the line. I could put the books back, and I started feeling a little bit useful. And I started slowly unsmoldering, a little bit at a time. But I was still being really dominated by work. You know, I had thrown away a pretty good career and a pretty good trajectory, and I was confident that I wasn't going to get that back. And then, you know, I started hearing people in here say things like they didn't think that they would ever work again, and they got jobs. And I started seeing people in here who talked about how they drank like me, and they thought they were down and out like me, and they're dressed. And I had a sponsor who said, they woke up dry. I love that line. So these people were waking up dry, not from a. I was a cold sweat every day of my life for 30 years probably, and I believe that was just fear leaking out of me. So I'm coming here, and I'm still not. Work is not good. And I keep being dominated by the same type of bosses repeatedly, over and over, and I resent them, and I really hate them, and that makes for a bad environment for them, I'm sure. But I'm really good at interviewing, and then I'll get the job, and then I resent you for asking me to do anything, I screwed up in every single onboarding I ever had. I said something, or I did something that put me on a bad footing every time, or at least I felt like I did. And I could hate myself worse than anyone could possibly beat me up. So that was all the time. So I mean, it's coming a little by little. I get this job. I don't like it, but it's more than I deserve. Way more than I deserve. Not a lot of money, but the fact that somebody is starting to see value in me again felt good. But I don't like the job, but I'm there for a year, and I find another job, and it's going good, and I'm there for 4.5 years, and I really have conflict with certain people at the place, and there was a day here that maybe like, well, let me back up. So around 2 years, I'm still not comfortable around people, but I know I'm not going to drink. I knew that instantly the second time. I'm not gonna drink, but I don't know if I'm ever going to feel comfortable around people. And there were two people here that just endeavored to make me super uncomfortable. And Joanne and Marty would sit across from me, and they would, and I thought I was smiling, and they would just like pound me. Show it on your face if you're happy. You say you're happy. Show it, and just like, and really, realistically, what happened was I really never learned to smile that well. I always had like a crooked smile. I didn't really like it. It was charming when I was 18, 19 years old. It helped me out a lot, you know. But I never really felt great about it, and man, they just sat there, and they wouldn't, and I would try to sit over here, and they would sit right across me, and I would sit back there, and they would sit right across me. They'd turn their chairs around if they had to, and so I finally really started faking it. It took me like a week of resenting them and wishing that they would either go to a different club or whatever, but they weren't leaving, and so I said, all right, I'll do it, and I was like, shoot, I don't know how, but what happened next and changed the way I live, and so I owe you everything. I owe you guys a lot. I've always had an idea that I liked a little bit of meditation here and there. I always liked to before wrestling or whatever, before a match. I would meditate a little bit. So I was okay with that. I hadn't done it really for our purposes. And what I did was I started putting on these headphones, and I started listening to hypnosis and meditation on how to smile, because I was going to show them. I didn't care if I had to have freaking plastic surgery, man. I needed to end this daily barrage. So a son of a bitch at work though. And I start smiling, legitimately smiling. And for a long time, one of my favorite things was when we'd be in pictures and I would show Sarah, that's a legitimate smile. That's a legitimate smile. And that was new because it's been a long time come before that. So that was really great, and that really embarked me on. I said, man, I'm gonna apply this, and I started doing that for everything. I love listening to AA hypnosises and meditations where they go through like the third step prayer for like a half hour, or someone just talks it out. And it's just like, God help me to be, patient, tolerant, loving, and kind. And I just love that. I love the way we speak in here. My whole life, I just wanted everyone to speak kindly to me, and I wanted to speak kindly to them. And I at some point, I figured that wasn't in the cards. But I didn't realize that it started with me. I had no idea. Again, I'm 9. So I really needed you guys to tell me all that. And I appreciate the fact that you did. I really didn't think I was going to fill the time up, but I think I might end up going too long if I keep going. But I'm going to keep going. So I'm doing hypnosis now for just how to be happy, how to be joyous, how to be free. I had never heard those 3 words strung together like that before I came in here. I had a God of my understanding before I came here, but I didn't know how to pray, and that's one thing I want to talk about. So we pray in here the third step prayer. And so it goes like, God, I offer myself to thee. Never said that in my life. I prayed, help me. Offer myself to thee to build with me and to do with me as thou wilt. That never occurred to me. Relieve me of the bondage of self. Hell yeah, I said that a lot. Relieve me of the bondage of self. That was my prayer. Help me out. Oh my God. Yeah, so that take away my difficulties. I prayed that all the time. Every day. And I never once considered so that I may better do thy will. I had no idea. And so I learned these prayers in here. I prayed a lot. I used to pray all the time. And I wouldn't get any relief. And there was a point in time when I was like, okay, I'm gonna keep I believe in God and everything, but maybe I just used up whatever chips I had. So just certain things weren't going to be in the cards for me. But a little bit over time, with the meditation and the work and staying in here, it felt like and you guys just working and loving on me. And I got a good sponsor. I had a habit of picking sponsors that went out. That would not hold me responsible for being the person that I need to be in this group and in my life and in my family. And and one day Ron said to me, you got to get a sponsor, like a real one. He's like, and I was like, why? And I'm obviously doing great. And he said, just try it and you'll find out. And so I thought about that for a little while, and then there was a guy in here who really I just love, and I just want to thank Pete, my sponsor, for just being such a steady hand. I can get all animated and I can tell a story, and I can get ready to like Hulk out, and he'll be like, "How are you doing with self-care? What are you doing to take care of yourself?" I was a guy that would throw myself through a plate glass window for a laugh or into a brick wall. Self-care is not high on my list, but it is now. It really is now. Like I know to take time for myself, and the best thing is I know how to offer that peace to other people, and I learned that from him and from you guys. I like to talk about the 10th tradition that has saved my ass. The 10th tradition says we have no opinion on outside opinions or whatever. Outside this room is outside, and I don't care. I have no idea. The other day the stock market was down. I didn't know. I don't care. I do not care. I have no opinion, and I love that because I used to have an opinion about everything, and I want to fight with you about it. My opinion is right, and I'm right, and I don't do that anymore. And man, the scales just fell off of me when I didn't have to do that anymore. When I didn't have to plan an argument. When I could walk into a room and I don't look immediately for the exit, and I don't size every guy up and think about, oh, I can kick that guy. Oh, that guy will kill me. I don't have to do that anymore. I don't have to. I can go out. I go talk to people. It's amazing. So I want to I'll finish with this thing because Jay was kind enough to introduce me. These guys that sit over here and these guys that sit at the table and everybody in the back, y'all mean so much to me. And I was having a hard time at my job, and I was complaining about it. And Jay took me to the side and he said something to the equivalent of, because I was like, I'm gonna blow out of there, I'm gonna quit. And he was like, listen, seem to be wherever you go, there you are. And maybe this is something you should work on, because if you go to some other place, you might just bring this entire baggage with you. And that made sense to me because it clearly, and I heard in here and other places, like once you got to get through something. And I was just repeating the same pattern over and over. So I stopped. I broke all these good patterns, all these old patterns, and I was doing the right thing. But still, with work, I was just still doing the same thing. And so he said to me, "Why don't you try writing about it?" And I said, okay, I will. And he gave me some tips on what to do. And I wrote about it. And I took my job and my work and my boss and everybody. I did the whole 12 steps on it. And I just admitted to God I'm completely powerless over this whole thing. And I don't have any control. And just take it. And then there was a couple of things that I realized. One thing is there was a lot of things that I were doing legitimately that were probably annoying my boss. Maybe I was doing it on purpose. I don't know. But through that process, I sharpened up a few things. We started providing the things that my boss wanted without giving her a hard time about it, and that made life a little bit easier. And there's a lot of things that came out of that really just made work a lot easier for me. And then I said, well, I'm going to still look. But I was coming from a position of neutrality. I wasn't fleeing. I didn't get fired. My hair's not on fire. I'm not cold sweating. I just have an opportunity now to maybe do something else and have it be better. Because I went from not thinking I was ever going to be able to do anything again, and I was accepting maybe jobs that I thought I just had to take, and it wasn't really the case anymore. Not anymore. So I started interviewing a little bit, and I get a call from this guy, and I don't want the job, but the guy is really nice guy. And he's saying some things that are really in line with what we say here. And I said, towards the end, I said, by the way, you friend of Bill's? Like, it's not a job interview. You friend of Bill's? He goes, well, I'm not, but I've had it in my life, a lot. And then I was like, all right, well, we got off, and I told my wife, and she was like, you did what? But I have to say, it was the most honest thing I've ever done. And I wanted to be, if I'm going to start anything new, I just wanted to be from now. My next interview was not that, I didn't do that, but I just wanted to be, I want to be at a fresh new level and just start fresh and be honest. And son of a gun, if that guy didn't pursue me and make me a great offer, and I took the job, and I love it, and it's going so well, and I told you in the beginning that I have an inability to connect with people. I never could. I always envied these reps that could go call on their doctors, and they were always laughing and joking and talking about things, and my thing was I developed the technical skills. I would speak about the medicine or the study, and that's how I got my business, because I couldn't do it. I would run from it. And so this guy came out to work with me this week. He's a real impressive person. He's run a lot of sales teams in a lot of countries, and he said to me, "You are one of the best people I have ever worked with at instantly connecting with people." So we're at lunch, and he had already told me about his parents, and told me about a lot of people in his life, and we didn't talk about AA very much. But when he said that, I looked him dead in the eye, and I said, "I need you to excuse me for a minute." And I got up and I went into the bathroom and I prayed. Thank you. And that's just one more gift to the program. And I want to say I prayed in here tonight before I came out, like everyone told me to. And I really want to thank the people that cleaned the room. It made me realize that I needed. It's always for me, get deeper into AA. Whenever I'm feeling out of sorts, I go, I'll call somebody. I've got sponsees. They're not all sober. They don't, but I am. I wish Harold was here. That man saved my life, and I just want to get that on tape. So, thank you guys very much. Lester said when it feels like enough, it's enough, and that is definitely enough. So, thanks for having me.